The guerrilla mask movement started right after COVID. Within 3 days of posting a personal GoFundMe campaign, Henry Park was joined by 21 other tech execs and friends and volunteers and community members, basically to put hospital grade masks directly in the hands of frontline workers. It was, a call to bypassing administration and red tape and really just getting this PPP to people who really needed it, who were working on the front lines. And so the group has stayed together to really bring resources together and bridge corporate resources with people in need. We're really excited to speak with you today and to offer this mass donation to your beautiful island. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit about Grenada and like your history and what your country's known for.
Okay, thank you and good morning, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to meet with you all today. And thanks as well to Ambassador Schoenfeld for making that connection for us. We're very proud of the work that he continues to do on behalf of our country. Just to let you know, other than what you may have already learned from Ambassador Schoenfeld, is that we're a small island in the Caribbean. But our engagement on the world stage it does not really reflect our size. We have a government that prioritizes ensuring that Grenada is well represented across the globe and that we are part of the international discourse on the very relevant topics. So we are the Isle of Spice, Pure Grenada, the Isle of Spice, and our chief crop is nutmeg. We export nutmeg. Prior to a hurricane that hit our island in 2004, we were the second largest producer of nutmeg, second only to Indonesia. And that hurricane really did affect the our trees, our crops, but we have gone on a replanting drive and we're doing quite well in that regard. But we also have other exports of cocoa. Our cocoa is also well known. Well renowned, and we also export. We've gone into a bit of value added exporting chocolates from our organically grown cocoa. So these are the two main crops. There are a lot of other crops that we export, in addition to our spices, for which we are really known for.
Wow.
So that's a bit about us in terms of our export. We are a beautiful island. We come with our nice white sandy beaches. Grenada is one of our premier beaches. But we have many other beaches across the island. We also have a bit of ecotourism. We have one of the world's only under sculpture water park, which provides a really good opportunity for diving.
Oh, beautiful.
And we have quite a few of our marine protected areas. And we try to balance using a reach to reef approach, protecting the land as well as protecting what goes off into our oceans and protecting our sea creatures and so. That's a bit about us in terms of our biodiversity, but in terms of governance and so we, really do play our part in the world stage, representing our country at the international fora. COVID, as you know, would have had this impact on us. Currently, we are managing well. We've had our little clusters like everyone else, but we've had 145 thereabout cases recorded to date. So we're one of the 5 countries in the world that has, the lowest rate of COVID infection. And that is in part to the procedures and policies put in place by our government and the methods used to help us to mitigate against it. Our borders are currently open. We're only closed to the UK, but we have in place a quarantine policy and procedure which we strictly adhere to. So that persons coming in goes into mandatory quarantine. You're not allowed to travel with a positive PCR test, but you get to be checked in quarantine again on the 4th or 5th day, and hopefully you can be released if by day 7 your results are negative. So we exercise a lot of border control, but as you would imagine, for a small country like ours with the resources that we have, we've paid a heavy price economically. For our efforts in treating with COVID. We've had a lockdown last year. We rely heavily also on our tourism product, and our hotels chain has been affected, our restaurants and so have been affected. Government has had to step in from time to time to subsidize the cost of operation, the losses, that to ensure that we did not get another crisis by virtue of an increase in the unemployment rate. So that has had its economic toll on us. Our ministries of health has had, for ministries like ours, Ministry of Health and Education has eaten up a chunk of our budget, because now government now has to reprioritize spending and these areas, because of the fight against COVID, has had significant help. So when Ambassador mentioned the possibility of a donation of PPEs to help us in our fight against COVID, I immediately smiled, because I know this is one of the tasks that our ministry, Foreign Affairs, has been given in terms of resource mobilization for all of government during this period. And resource mobilization, not just meaning financial resources or grants or so, but if we can get technical assistance in areas where government would otherwise have to pay for it, or if we can get equipment or donation of supplies, which will cause us to go a little easier in our coffers, it would be very welcome, because it goes directly into the front line to help us in that preservation of the status that we currently have, and preventing us from going further into economic challenges as a result of COVID. So I'm really, really happy for this initiative today. And I look forward to see how we can move forward and how we can really assist. You can really assist us in getting them here. So thank you. That's just
Excellent. I mean, I know the world has been experiencing supply chain issues due to COVID, and I would imagine being an island, that's really extended to you guys, because you have to probably import most of this stuff, and that probably greatly increases the costs of everything, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we've had the issue of persons not having the supply. So even if we can place the order, there is a challenge of the limiting supply.
Right.
That's another challenge that we have, and when the price go up, it puts us a little bit out of reach.
Right.
So,
right. And you mentioned that your country has really got a big ecotourism. Big ecotourism, and with that being shut down during COVID, I would imagine that's a huge financial toll for you as well.
Yes, we have felt the impact of that. What we've found is that also there has been a bit of a drive locally for our nationals to participate and partake of that ecotourism, but it's never on the scale of what you would have when we have cruise ships coming in at our ports, and we have the overnight passengers coming in from the aircrafts and staying at our hotels and benefiting from those tours. So it has really affected the tourism industry, so much so that government had to step in and help with a stimulus package to help with those who are employed in that sector.
Wow. Yeah. And I'm curious, I mean, it sounds actually like you have a pretty progressive government and society in terms of education and ecotourism and all of that. And I was curious how you got into government.
Well, I've been a public officer for most of my working life. Well, actually, all of my working life. So I got into the public service in my very first job. I started at the Ministry of Finance in the Customs Department. And then I went off to do some studies in international relations, and then I was transferred to the Foreign Ministry. I spent just about 10 years in the Foreign Ministry, and then I was sent on assignment to the Ministry of Climate Resilience, the Environment, as the acting permanent secretary. And there I spent another 2 years. And then I came back to the Foreign Ministry, which I like to call my natural habitat. And Beautiful. I came back since October, and I'm here. But during my first stint in the Foreign Ministry, I was also the charge d'affaires of the Embassy of Grenada to the European Union and to the Kingdom of Belgium for just over 2 years. So
wow.
That has been my span in government. And I've always been following the global issues, two particular issues in particular, climate change and human rights have been the two issues that I've had competence in. So it's sort of a natural fit for me to always want to find a way to make sure that persons who need tools to work also normally get access to them, because I've always had a rights-based approach to quite a few
Amazing.
things.
Amazing. And as the permanent secretary, what is your what are your responsibilities? Like what would that equate to in our government in the United States? Like how would that?
Well, I would think it's almost like an undersecretary. So I'm actually basically the administrative head of the ministry. The minister in our case is the political head of the ministry. So I help. One of my key objectives is to ensure the implementation of policy directives. Whatever policies are set by our cabinet, the public service has its framework of rules within which we operate. So I am to get the minister his policy implemented the best way possible within the construct that we currently have. So I manage the ministry in terms of implementation of projects and policies. And also we provide advice to the minister, data, analysis on what is happening or issues that we think he needs to take to cabinet to help inform policy decisions. So it is a two-way track, really, that we manage the ministry administratively on that front, and we also provide policy and technical advice to help inform policy decisions.
Wow. So you're pretty high up there in the government. That's amazing. We're so grateful to be able to speak with you and connect with you. So what is your road to recovery plan, you know, both in terms of economics and just keeping everybody safe and healthy?
Well, our Prime Minister has articulated and continues to articulate that is people first. We have a people first approach that if our people are not safe, if our policies are not engineered towards keeping our citizens safe, then nothing else matters. Because if you have nobody, then all of the policies you have in place is going to be among to naught. So first and foremost, and that's why we have the protocols we have in place at our borders in particular. And we still do have our protocols with regards to wearing masks in public. It's mandatory. And the maintenance of the social distancing, 6 feet and 3 feet in some cases. We have those that are currently we employ every day, but we pay particular attention to our borders and to catch any possible infections and cases coming in at the border where we can adequately treat with them before we have any possibility of a community spread. So on that angle, we look at it from that way. But also on the economic front, government is also looking for ways to sort of reopen and re-engage the tourism sector in particular, which has been hit really hard. So I know there have been a series of meetings with hoteliers, with taxi drivers, and with all of the service providers with a view to getting from them also their impressions and their ideas on how we can move forward in ensuring that when it is safe to do so, that we are ready. So I think a lot of preparatory work are undergoing now so that when we know that we can open up fully again, we're not scrambling to figure out how best to do it. But that work is currently ongoing so that we will be ready when it's time to reopen. But the engagement level is continuing at all levels, from the political level, from the managerial level with all of the stakeholders, and also on the ground level with the persons who are really directly hit the hardest as a result of the crisis.
Wow, I really love that your government's approach is people first and really taking care of the people. I'm really excited to come and visit Grenada now and come
I'm
and
sure
see
we'll be
more
happy
of
to
your
have you.
beautiful country. It sounds amazing. And it sounds like you guys are really on it. Like you've really taken a lot of steps and really are an example the world should look at, because you've really managed COVID quite well, it sounds like. So yeah, we're really excited to donate. We have 2,000 3-ply masks and 3,000 cloth masks to send to you guys, and also too, you know, we've worked with the United States, but this is our first international step as a nonprofit and as a movement, and we're really excited that it could be with a country such as yours that seems very dedicated to taking care of the people. So, but I wanted to ask you one more question. I understand you guys have I understand you guys have a large medical school there. How has the medical school fared during COVID?
Yeah, we do have a medical school, and we've also been hit by COVID. The medical school is a significant part of the GDP of the country, and you would imagine because the students there are primarily foreign students. Um, we've had a mass evacuation when the COVID pandemic hit. Persons, the uncertainties. We're a small island. The strain that and the concern was the strain that we're going to have on our health system should we have a real big impact on the COVID. So you would imagine that that would cause some uncertainty among the student population whose families are outside of Grenada. And so there
Yeah.
was the option and the privilege afforded to them to be able to repatriate. And many of the students would have done that. Some students did remain and are happy that they remained because we really did not suffer the fate as many other countries. We've had only one COVID-related death in Grenada,
Wow.
and so it's that has impacted the way learning has happened at the university. So I've been told that there's some semblance of online learning continuing, but I do not have any information on when we would see the school reopening for actual classes, in-person classes. So that is yet to be determined, but the school has been affected, really
Yeah.
affected, and not just the schools, but you would imagine the persons who have who house the students, so the apartment
Yeah.
complexes and families who had apartments that accommodated students would have felt the brunt of that effect as well.
Yeah, there's a trickle down effect.
Yes.
Yeah, and also you mentioned that you guys are really proactive in climate issues and agricultural
Mhm.
issues, and we're actually embarking on some regenerative farming here in the United States. And Henry wanted to ask a couple questions or make a couple comments about that.
Yeah, yeah. Before we do, just a quick comment on the medical school side. So, my wife is a dedicated pediatrician, and the whole reason why Guerrilla Mask Movement got started was because of the issue she was going through at her clinic. It's a little backwards here. So,
Mhm.
I'm really encouraged to hear how Grenada has, handled the situation. Unfortunately, with the infrastructure we have, as brilliant as it is from a capitalistic standpoint, from a social policy standpoint, we failed. We failed
Mhm.
our families, our wives, our children, and so we're still struggling. And I'm really happy to hear, what successes you guys have had. I think if my wife knew about your medical school before, she would have happily gone over there instead of going to Chicago. And so we're really happy to be able to support your school as well. I think there's other I think there are other supply chains that we could help with. The thing that resonated with me as I heard you speaking was the resource modernization that you guys are going through, and that you're deeply integrated with, and that really helps me understand this better. I don't want us to be a representation of just masks. It's the masks is something that we started with. And for us, the reason we still maintain the title Mass in our name and as our nonprofit grows, and we're doing a lot around agriculture, we're doing a lot around schooling and education for youth in our community that have been failed by our current government and institutions. But at the core is our ability to integrate a lot of entrepreneurial thinking and out of the box thinking into our governments that we serve, and organizations we serve, whether it be the local nurse union here in Los Angeles or Grenada. It's the same entrepreneurial type thinking that we like to integrate. Ryan, I know you mentioned some supply chain resources we may be able to offer. Did you want to talk about that a little bit before we talked about the farming and agriculture?
Sure. Good morning. The one of the things that Guerrilla Mask movement did early on, and it's actually part of my involvement. My background is in security and investigations, and one of the challenges that we were having here in the U.S. was the amount of counterfeit and fraudulent PPEs that were making their way to frontline workers, and we were having a challenge where the prices were being raised, people were being gouged, and the quality of the product was extremely low and not actually providing the level of protection that the wearer was expecting from it. And so my early involvement with GMM was learning how to evaluate the supply chain, test the products to make sure that they were actually good quality and that the pricing was fair and not taking advantage of any particular group. And so one of the outcomes of our efforts is we have a pretty great global supply chain of products that we've developed. And if it can be of help to Grenada, I'm more than happy to extend any of those contacts or resources.
Well, thank you very much for those two comments and offers. We'd like to hear some more about it. Ambassador Schonfeld will know, and maybe Ryan, you would know from spin-offs that, he's done quite a bit of work with our Ministry of Agriculture. He's had a passion, particularly in regards to irrigation and so. So I'm sure the officers in the Ministry of Agriculture will be willing to explore and to learn more about those initiatives and to see where it gets from there.
Okay, no, thank you for that. And on the agriculture side, this is one where we actually need some help in the U.S. Unfortunately, the United States has been growing from an agricultural standpoint, utilizing very old technologies and processes that is really hurting our not just our economy but our environment. Mm-hmm. And there is a grassroots effort that is led by its citizens like us that is trying to overthrow a lot of legacy infrastructure in the form of certifications, farming practices, technologies that exist that really are hurting our land. And so, part of what Guerrilla Mask Movement is working on is a farm concept that is utilizing a lot of new technologies that integrate alternative energy, regenerative farming practices that will not only help heal the land, but also create electricity as a byproduct. The problem with these types of technologies is that it disrupts too many established industries, like electricity, like the utility business of electricity, like gas, oil. Those industries are, once you have them established, it's really hard to upend. I'd love to talk to you guys further about it, but when you talk about resource modernization and having technical assistance in medicine or whatnot, I also see that as something that if we can work out with Grenada would be very helpful for the United States as well.
Yeah, like I said, we're a small country, so we're willing to partner, we're willing to explore, we're willing to see, what sort of collaborative efforts we can forge with the international community, whether it be on the government side, whether it be on the organizational side, whether it's nonprofit, whatever it is, because we have a very vibrant nonprofit organization group here in Grenada and civil society. And our Prime Minister has made it a point that they be involved in decision making. So government has something called a social contract, in which major decisions also they have a part in that discussion and they get to air their views. And so before that decision is taken, and it's something that he chairs that committee as a matter of fact, and he meets with them on a monthly basis to run major decisions or major policy that government is looking to implement. So that level of partnership, that participatory governance is something that he embodies and symbolizes how he's organized his government. And so from us at the policy implementation level, we will look at opportunities for collaboration, for engagement, to see how it is beneficial to us. And I'm happy we're having that conversation, because then it needs to go to the line ministries, who is particularly charged with that, for the fleshing out of the details and to see what is really possible. So what I can give you here is that we're open to conversation. We're open to see where it can go. But as soon as we can, we'll put you in touch with the people who really are the experts in that area, who really carrying the mantle in that particular area to have that further dialogue.
Great. Thank you
That's
very much.
exciting. Thank you. I think,
Yeah,
we need to be a global community. We're all up against some climate issues and, social issues and political issues that, the collaboration is really important. And I think as a human race, we can really do a lot if we collaborate together and if we really support one another as a global community. So, does
Right.
anyone have
Very
any
much.
other questions or comments or anything?
Well, I haven't heard Ambassador yet. How are you, Ambassador?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you, Permanent Secretary. I've been enjoying this conversation very much. And let me just say that I'm more than happy to be the bridge between Guerrilla Mask Movement and all of their very, very good initiatives and Grenada, whether it goes through foreign affairs or agriculture or the oceans. I'm more than happy to do what I can to put the right people with the right people.
We appreciate your help.
Thank you
Well,
so much for your time.
thank you, Permanent
Yes.
Secretary, for making yourself available.
Yeah.
Yes, it's actually a pleasure, and I look forward to further conversations with you over time. So thank you so much for considering Ambassador's request and for agreeing to assist us. There are some people in the Ministry of Health that we can possibly have further discussions with regards to the donation, and we just want to say thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for your
much.
time and for speaking with us so freely and openly. And like I said, I'm very excited now to come visit your beautiful island.
Ambassador knows the way very well. I'm sure
Okay.
he will help you.
I'll have Alvin pave the way for us. All right.
Thank you,
right.
everybody.
Have a
Thanks,
beautiful
everybody.
day.
Okay,
Take care.
bye-bye.
All the
Bye-bye.
best.
Thank you.